Good morning, everybody, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us this fine morning. I hope you all enjoyed the various parties last night. Now, I was obviously part of Amplifier, so we were sponsoring the official party, so I hope you drank heavily and enjoyed yourself tremendously, but somehow managed to feel nice and well and refreshed this morning. For those of you who don't know, my name is Oscar Clark. I'm going to be the MC for this room today and introducing people on the mobile track. I've been involved in games for a rather long time, about 14 years, and particularly in mobile, where obviously, those of you know, I was involved with the 3 game service in the UK, where we sold a few games, probably made more money than most operators at the time. The world has moved on tremendously since then, and today we're going to try and go into that in some detail and look at all of the different aspects of the mobile ecosystem. And we're going to talk about how games work, how games get discovered. We're going to be talking about all sorts of things. To kick us off, we have the joy of having Joel BERGER here. Joel has been involved with a whole bunch of online communications, including, I found very interestingly, MTV networks and MySpace, but now is involved with being the term here seems to be industry leader entertainment and media, which is, I think, really interesting. So he's going to tell us all about how you get your game discovered, particularly on the marvelous platform which he's working for, which is Google. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Joel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. A very good morning to you too. Before we actually start, I would like to show you a little video. A video of how mobile games could look in the future. You might have seen that video already, but I think it's quite interesting anyways, because it shows a couple of elements that really are interesting in terms of mobile gaming.
Hey, dude.
This is basically playing Battlefield with Google Glasses. So you have the social element. You saw the guy is recognizing the other guy. You have location-based information projected into the Google Glasses thing. The system even tells you that you're now entering a restricted area.
Perfect. Load Battlefield.
And then you download the game.
All right.
Or
Play
look.
algo. Yes.
And it's beginning.
Let's go. Bye-bye.
And so on and so on. So a lot of fun. This is probably a little bit away in the future, but as I said, it contains a couple of very interesting elements. The social element, you're playing with your friends. The location element, so you're sensitive to where you actually are. And obviously, it includes the environment, the real environment around you. So more the boring stuff, the charts, you don't have to read through those. The presentation will be available for download, obviously. I don't have to tell you that mobile is big. Some people speak of a $16 billion market in 2016. That includes all the download fees, the in-app purchases, and the in-game advertising. $16 billion from a mere $5 billion this year. Platforms, obviously, iOS is still the dominating platform when it comes to monetization. But Android is catching up pretty fast here. The whole development is driven by the smartphone adoption. More and more smartphones are sold in the entire world every day. And in-game purchases seem to emerge as the dominant model of monetization. I have seen, or I've quoted a number here, 62% of the revenues are allegedly or will be coming through in-app purchases. And the market is still dominated by independent players. The majority of games are still produced by independent studios. So what are the real success factors for making it work, for making a mobile game successful? Pretty obvious, no-brainer. You have to reach your customers. You have to get it in front of your customers and make the right decisions there. Then you have to engage your customers. Heiko yesterday spoke about quality. That's essentially quality. A game that engages the user is a quality game. And then you have to be able to scale the entire business to a reasonable amount. Reaching your customer, basically again, three things to look at. The first is the online store, the Play Store, the iTunes Store, where you download your game. Secondly, display. Display includes normal mobile web pages, but also applications where your banner appears and where you can generate a massive push for your game within a really short period of time. And then thirdly, mobile search, obviously. More and more people look for online games or look for a specific game through mobile search. So the online store bit is interesting because I don't have to tell you, it's kind of important to be in the top 25. And many clients of ours say, if we get one game in the top 25, basically get 2 viral downloads for each one we pay to get in there. So there's a viral element to that is extremely important. The Play Store and the iTunes Store work kind of differently, so the strategies are different when you push it into the store, but still it remains an extremely important strategy. But also the online search bit, you see tremendous growth in mobile searches, so searches performed on the mobile phone for a specific game or for just online gaming or free-to-play gaming or whatever keyword you have in that gaming space. It grew again 100% last year, and it will grow for the next couple of years in the same rate, I'm sure. And thirdly, maybe most importantly, if you want to reach those people who play with a mobile game, why not do that within the mobile game? So over 70% of Android users spend an average of 81 minutes with apps a year, no, a day. I should have said that. And so it's obvious that if you want to reach people who like mobile gaming, you should put your ad into a mobile game. And our AdMob network has daily ad requests, 4 billion daily ad requests. It's active in 200 countries, and it's live on 300,000 apps. In Germany, we're talking to 12 million unique users, almost half the smartphone population, and that's 1.7 billion impressions per month. So it's pretty big, but it's obviously very important to optimize the performance there. So measurement, we heard a lot about measurement yesterday. Download tracking, obviously, it's a no-brainer, but also things like the conversion optimizer. So if you know what the customer lifetime value for your game is, you can basically adjust your bids accordingly so that you always end up with that certain acquisition cost or that cost per install or cost per whatever you want to call it. But it optimizes the conversion price you're paying to that what you are ready to pay. Confirmed clicks is something we introduced because we noticed that a lot of people on the mobile phone click erroneously. They click on something they didn't want to click on, and optimized click is a method to make sure that they don't do that they're really sure what they're clicking on, and it gives you more certainty that you don't have to pay for something you don't have a benefit of. App promo banner is something that turns your text into a nice banner, and analytics obviously is very important, but we'll come to that a little bit later. Next to the tools, you also have very granular targeting options if you want to reach this guy, a photo taken from Wired magazine. But basically what you can do is, if you know that your game is similar to Angry Birds, or you think that people who like Angry Birds like your game as well, you can specifically target that game and put your ads into Angry Birds. You can target specific to location, where the user is, and something that's also very interesting, new devices. So people who just got their devices for Christmas, and we always see this huge peak on Christmas when they put the new devices to work. And you can address those users specifically if you have a game that is very appealing to new smartphone users. Obviously, Wi-Fi, you can address Wi-Fi versus 3G, interests, devices, operating systems, and versions thereof. As I'm sure you're aware, especially Android is quite fragmented when it comes to OS versions and operators as well. So this kind of worked. We have a couple of case studies. I put this Gree case study in here. It's pretty impressive. They saw a 150% increase in download rate, a decrease in cost per download by 50%, and also a click-through rate improvement, which is pretty impressive. These case studies can be downloaded from our site as well. Another one from Zirality, Hamburg's very own. Also, they generated 2 million downloads in the first 12 months and had measurable effect on their store ranking. So for the engagement bit, that's quite interesting because it's really hard. Again, what Heiko had in his presentation yesterday, the retention engagement bit is probably the hardest thing in this whole business. A company that was acquired by Google produced this little game here, Ingress, and it's very interesting because it was very much geared to engagement. And what it does, it combines mobile, social, and also the real reality. So it's a MMOG on the smartphone that connects to the real world. So whatever you do, you have certain real world elements in it, and it also connects to social networks like I have Google Plus here. You can also add other social networks, of course, but Google Plus is a very handy one in this case. And it also connects to the real world. You see this New York pharmacist here. What they do is they put a button of the game in the entrance, and if you enter the store, you can unlock certain things in the game. And they plan to roll that out to other companies as well, like Starbucks, etc., where you have a real-world benefit or a virtual benefit, but you have to do it in the real world. You have to go into their store. A couple of numbers again. Only 25% of the mobile games right now are connected to a back end. And social games, if you look, that's something Flurry did. They looked at, you cannot read this, but they connected retention and frequency. And they saw that social games have higher retention, but lower frequency. So people stay in the game longer, but they don't play that often. And obviously that's something you have to play with depending on how your game is structured and how your monetization strategy is structured. But there's certain usage patterns that you have to observe to get to the results. 6% of the apps that are downloaded are only opened once. That is something that's also important for the acquisition strategy. Obviously, if you have an acquisition strategy that is sort of, people watch an ad and then download the app, that's nice because it can get you into the App Store. It's not so nice because they never use the app. So you have to balance that, obviously, with your retention goals. And in-game purchases, we had that 62%. We have produced a number of tools that we hope, and we're pretty sure that we can increase engagement and loyalty. One is the in-app AdWords conversion tracking. The idea is that you define certain elements in your app as a conversion. So not just the download, but if you do something, you buy something, you enter a certain room, whatever, is a conversion, and you can track that into AdWords, and you can optimize it in AdWords. So you can actually plan to convert more people to that specific event, be it a buy, be it whatever. Also remarketing, very important, because if you have a certain genre, it's very likely that your users will like those other games you have as well once they've finished playing the first game. And also a couple of new formats, interstitials, that are pretty appealing to the target group. The most difficult bit, but maybe the most important bit, what happens after the download. There is a nice product called Google Analytics, Mobile App Analytics, or Google Mobile App Analytics, that looks at all the three areas that are important. The acquisition bit, who are your users, how do you get the new users, what is basically their funnel, what do they do? The outcome, what happens, how much apps do you sell if you sell them, how many in-app purchases you have, etc., how many goals can you actually convert? And the engagement bit, how often do they come, what do they do, what screens are they actually visiting, how can you optimize your game according to these behaviors. Extremely interesting product to optimize your game, and probably a necessary one. We saw it in the browser game area, where it's obviously much easier to optimize your game on the fly because you can change your browser game. It's not so easy to change your mobile game because it's an app, but still it's an extremely important way to see what's happening there. And the last bit, scaling it, making it big. Only 2 short slides here. It obviously starts with an efficient platform. That's my favorite chart. Very clear. Basically what it says, there is something we offer called the App Engine. It's something you can scale from 1 daily user to 1 million daily users for producing the actual app. It's the compute engine. That's basically what we call cloud computing. BigQuery, something you can look into all your data, and the storage bit, of course, to produce the games for those platforms. And you can see a couple of companies are already using that to a big extent. And monetization, AdMob, I'm sure you've heard of those guys. Pretty big reach, pretty big scale, innovative ad formats, powerful tools. Again, a couple of big companies using that. So it's my final and favorite chart because I love the logo. It's just saying basically that we're there to help with anything that has to do with mobile games. I haven't even mentioned YouTube. I'm sure you know the product, 800 million users, but 25% of the videos that are watched on YouTube are watched from a mobile device. So this is really huge, and it also is the opportunity to get in touch with those users, but it shows you that mobile and mobile gaming is really a top priority. The Google Play Store, you know, Google+, AdMob, Android, we have 1.3 million Android activations per day, which is also pretty amazing in the entire world. 500,000 children are born every day and 1.3 million Android activations. So that's pretty crazy. So I guess I'm finishing with the words that, you know, if you have a mobile game, if you're planning one, we're here to help and we're very grateful to work with you on this. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, John. So what we're going to do is try and ask a couple of questions. We haven't got a huge amount of time for that, but what I'm hoping is that if you've got questions and you want to, tweet them to me, I'm going to be checking the #CasualConnect tag throughout the day. So please send us some questions. I actually had a question before we started sent through to me by somebody I reached out a few days ago, and the first question that was asked was actually related to the App Store, and particularly what does it take to get featured. Now, you've talked around a whole bunch of things, but if you're going to sum up the sort of one thing you would be recommending people to do to work with Google and particularly to get featured, what would you say that one thing was?
The most powerful tool in the App Store is the ranking. So the higher you're up in the ranking, the more likely it is that your game gets downloaded. And ranking is driven essentially by downloads. And there's differences in the iOS store. You can get into the ranking with one big push. With the Android, the algorithm is a little bit different. With Play Store, it takes a little bit more.
Actually, the question was specifically about the featuring, because whilst I totally understand the effect, and actually during my time at Papaya, we saw some really interesting results where games would go in, and if you got into the ranking, you would get so much extra sort of throughput, you could get maybe 80% of your downloads through the positioning. So that could be really effective. What we also saw, though, was that featured elements, both on iOS and on Google, were incredibly powerful. And the particular questioner on Twitter was asking, how do we get that featured part? Aside from the ranking side, we want to get access to the featuring. Do we talk to you about that, or are there other people involved in that? Is there a particular thing that you guys would be looking for to get that featured slot?
It's obviously a lot of teams involved in this. I'm not doing this alone. But the general notion is that something gets featured if there's perceived interest, because the store like Google in general wants to cater to the needs of the users. So whenever it's thought that there's an interest for the users, or this is really something new, something cool, it tends to be featured easily than other things.
And I think that's fairly common in the way that I see things working. For example, if you're not showing something off that takes advantage of some of the unique features of the platform you're working with, then why would they choose you as opposed to the hundreds of other apps a day that they're being presented with? Still, enough about me talking. Anyone else got a question? Come on, don't be shy. I'm sure we can get somebody to give us a question. Question right there. I need chocolates or something to throw at people who give me questions, don't I? Yeah.
Hello, thank you for your lecture. Just a small question out of curiosity. How do you confirm these clicks? Like you said that you use this click confirmation to determine which are like motivated clicks and which are accidental.
It is, I don't have the picture, but it basically what it does is you click on it and then the banner changes a little bit and saying with a little arrow, and then you have to, we call it 1.5 clicks. You have to confirm that you actually wanted to click on that. So, but there's an optical signal of you really want to do this. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? There's a question right there. There's a question right there.
Hello, it's Michael. Could I track the customer lifetime value with Google App Analytics?
That depends on how you define the customer lifetime value. But if you say customer lifetime value is basically the RPPU and how long he's there, yes, you can. If that's your definition. If you have a more elaborate definition, then it's basically you have to check it. But if it's that simple, then you can.
And there's a question there.
Can you talk a little bit about the App Store? You were previously talking about the App Store rankings and what affects them. And you said essentially downloads are driving the rankings and the charts. And then you were talking about the differences between iOS and Android. Can you talk a little bit about the driving factors with Android charts with regard to also Google+? What are, do backlinks to the Google Play Store page actually affect rankings? Social media buzz? What are actually the major differences between iOS and Android chart boosting? Thanks.
Difficult question. I cannot answer every detail of it, but the whole idea is that Android takes more signals into account when it calculates the ranking. So the algorithm is a little bit more complicated, and the result is that it's a little bit slower. So charts don't change that fast. On the other hand, we think it's a more accurate picture of reality because that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to reflect the interest, to deliver to the user really what's relevant to him, as opposed to something that is shooting up and down more, faster. Because we think that it's more important to show what's really relevant to the users, as opposed to something that might be a fad.
And actually that's shown out in some of the experiences we've had. And I've seen the way that an app that's well polished can still make it by sheer strength of being a good game, particularly through the trending charts. The way that the rate of change when you launch a game affects the trending chart, that means it is still possible for great games to be found. Whereas I think on some other platforms it's a little harder. But one thing I do also think is worth talking about, and we haven't got much time, but just a sort of last question really, is for me there's a relationship between sort of discovery and engagement as you've talked about. But if we focus only on the advertising side and not about the sort of meaning of within the game, the way the game flows, but also the other softer measures, the other marketing channels, we lose out on a real opportunity, I believe. So what do you think is the advertising route the only way forward, or should we be focusing on a full range of marketing communications?
I'm not sure if I understood the question right, but I think as you said, there's definitely a way to get into the rankings without advertising, if it's really viral, if it really works. We've seen that with games like Minecraft. Don't do a lot of advertising, but it kind of works, as we know. So, but on the other hand, it's increasingly harder to stand out. There's 500,000 different apps, and it's hard to stand out there. So it always has to be a combination to stay up there. You have to have a good game, obviously, but I think there's some initial push through advertising is necessary. The good news, however, is that that kind of advertising is highly scalable, and you see very fast if it works or not for you.
Great. So I'm afraid we ran out of time on that, so thank you very much, Joel. I'm particularly interested in that because at Amplifier we focus on our video capture service, and we post lots of videos up to YouTube, and the effectiveness of that is, again, brilliant. Seeing people playing games is, again, a really important part of engagement. But enough about me. Instead, I'd like to invite my dear friend, Michael Shardet, to come and join us. Now, Mike and I have known each other for a very long time. One of the things I think is interesting is that at the time when I was offering 60% revenue share, sorry, I rephrase that. I was taking 60% revenue share as an operator. Michael was advocating the move towards the developer getting 70% and the channel getting less. At the same period of time, he's been, consistently looking at different ways of pushing the industry and thinking differently about the way the industry works. Looking at how in-app purchase operated before iOS was announced. Looking at demanding better copyright protection from Apple. He's been continuously pushing the industry and adding commentary to the way the market works, and has generally been right. Although don't quote me on that too often. So we're going to do some setup now. So we're going to give him a couple of seconds to get himself set up. But please make sure that if you have any questions that you want to ask, just tweet them to #CasualConnect, and I'll try and make sure we answer them. So if you're very shy, don't worry, I can answer the question for you. Thanks very much.